Oh, we didn't? Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
We're live.
Hello, welcome everyone to GMT Talk. I know we'll have people probably trickling in for a little while, but welcome to GMT Talk, where we talk about all things GMT. Today, we will have a brief update from Gene on different GMT matters, and plenty of GMT team members will grace us with their presence and give us updates on what they're working on. This is our first live GMT Talk, so your positive comments and questions are welcomed. And we will hopefully get to some of them as we go. Unfortunately, Rachel can't make it this time. But joining me on screen, we have Gene Billingsley, we have Mike from Zilla Blitz, Volko Ruhnke, and John Butterfield. Welcome, everyone. Excited to have you here. Thanks for coming. Cool. Gene, would you like to start out?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, a lot of times at the start of these, I do a longer, boring version of, how GMT is doing. So I'm just going to cut to the chase. We've been doing this for 34 years. We've created over 500 games. I guess they've done all right. The customers seem to be happy. We make them, by the way, not to win awards, although it's nice when we do. We make them because we want to bring joy to customers who play them. And selfishly, I guess, also, I make them because I like to be friends with really, really smart, creative designers who like history like I do. And so we have 9 of our designers here today that we're going to spend some time with. And a couple of them are kind of new to GMT, but most of the others, I'm really honored to call them not just my coworkers, but my friends. And I think that's what happens is that at GMT, the people we work with over time, they become our friends. And it's a lot more fun to succeed with your friends than by yourself. Definitely. So I think I'll just start. I do want to say thanks to Mike from Zilla, who's going to be helping us with technical stuff today and putting questions up on the screen from you guys who are asking questions on YouTube. And I want to thank John and Volko for coming and being with us today. Thanks for your time, gentlemen.
Very happy to be here.
Glad to be here.
Yep. So happy to be here too. And thanks for doing this as part of the SD HistCon conference too, everybody. This is fantastic. I know we have a ton of people from the conference that are sliding over from the audio channel there to join on the video here. So they're picking up the stream here. And we've got, I think, close to 30, 40 people in the stream right now, and it's picking up fast. So
great.
Yeah, I want to say that for a second too. I really appreciate Harold and Edgar and all the team at SD HistCon. They spend a lot of time and effort trying to broaden our hobby and bring more people in. I'm in favor of anybody who does that. And guys like Mike and other content creators that work with Rachel and work with us, they do that every day. And so it's why really we're supportive of them, because they're spending their time and their effort to help people enjoy our hobby more. And that's really what it's about at the end of the day. It's not the number of games that we make or how many awards we win or how much money we make, but are we able to consistently provide games that bring enjoyment to our customers? And so the 2 guys here with us today are huge in our hobby in terms of bringing enjoyment to gamers' tables. I'm gonna start with John and just ask each of you guys just to spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Just tell us what you're working on right now, and then we'll get back to you with some questions. So go ahead, John, and then we'll get to Volko.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'm working on Away Team, The Voyages of the Pandora. Just had a session earlier here at the virtual con where we did a walkthrough of the training mission, or part of it. And I think it went okay, although all I remember is struggling with Tabletop Simulator the whole time. Trying to go left, moving right, trying to go in, moving out. Anyway, yeah, so that was fun. And so that project we've been working on for like 2 years. We're hoping to finish up the design and development of it at the end of this year. I'm been working with a great team of writers on the game. David Spangler and Douglas Sun.
Mm.
And then more recently, we added Greg Kostikian, who many of you may remember, or that name may ring a bell as a legendary designer and writer in our hobby since the 70s. He designed The Creature That Ate Sheboygan and Web and Starship and the Paranoia role-playing game and a ton of other stuff. And I wanted to add some, a writer to the team. And I asked Greg if he could recommend anyone. And he said, well, how about me? So I said, yeah. So anyway, so we're almost done with the writing, which is the most of the work on the project, because it's going to include a 150-page book of passages that you access as you go through exploring 7 different star systems over like an 11-year, 12-year mission of the Pandora. Yeah, we're already doing art because there's so much of it to do. There'll be 150 illustrated cards and 20 illustrated maps. So on some GMT information, it says it's in the art department, which usually means it's near publication, but we're probably good 9 months away from publication, if not more. But that's really using most of my time. I am working on a new expansion for Space Corp, which will, I'll get more fully into when away teams off the plate. And I have a new World War II system I'm working on as well. So that's my short story.
Ooh.
Thank you, John. Now I'm intrigued. We have to talk about that World War II system. Volko, how about you? What are you working on?
So first, some quick notes about the Levian campaign series, because I just came from a big crowd around Peter Mojic with Volume 7 Zizka, which is on P500, and it seems to be moving and grooving. I think we had 22 folks watching his playthrough of a short scenario for that. It's the Hussite Reformation in Bohemia in the 1400s with war wagons and bombards and whatnot. That's Volume 7. Right now, I'm supporting, let's say, it's not mainly my work at this point, Volume 5, Seljuk, which is the Byzantines and Turks from Justin Facino. And that one is, I think a lot of the art is done, and it's a matter of, proofing art materials and finishing up the supplemental materials like historical notes and the like. So that one I expect will be print ready for you this summer sometime. Nice. So hopefully that means the logistics gods say we actually deliver that to market before year end. I would love to see. And at that point, when Seljuk is no longer on P500 because it's produced, then we'll want to have the next Levian campaign on P500, which will either be Hauteville from Antoine McNichol, which is Normans in southern Italy, 11th century, and the first multiplayer Levian campaign. So it'll be a 4-player game, or depending on which is more ready, Chevauché from Mark Greenwald, which would be the first multi-pack, which is to say multiple boards, double-sided boards to cover all the major campaigns of the 100 Years' War, or put them all together and romp across France if you're so inclined. So that's Levian campaign. My main focus myself right now is Coast Watchers, which has made the cut. Thank you for the support. And we have a very active Discord to do test and development there. In particular, the Australian play testers are very enthusiastically active. So almost all but one of the 15 scenarios in the game have been play tested more than once, and we're still tuning and tweaking there, and that will continue for the 2-player game. We have the full solitaire system for playing as the Allied Coast Watchers against the Japanese already in testing. We already have a version 2.0 of that. I'm very proud of that and how that will work. I think it's going to be great. And a first draft from me of the solitaire system to play the Japanese hunting the Coast Watchers. As yet untested, it's in first draft, and we shall see.
Thanks, Volko. I appreciate that. Sounds like you're busy, both of you guys. So I want to take you back for just a second, each of you, and I'll just toss this out, and whoever wants to go first can go first. I love some of the games that you guys have done before as well. So I'm a huge Space Corp fan. So John, I'd love it if you'd tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit more about what direction you might be taking with Space Corp. And Volko, I love Labyrinth. I mean, as you know, I love Labyrinth. And I've heard that there's another Labyrinth expansion out there. So maybe at your leisure here, give us a little window into that. Whoever wants to go ahead.
I can go first because I have an unfortunately short answer to that, because I also heard that that Trevor Bender is working. I don't know. Is it Trevor? I presume it's Trevor, because I heard too that that's into it. I don't know what it will be, and so it's in fact I don't have a good guess what it'll be. I think it's a prequel. I think the idea. Yeah, I think the idea is, and I don't know to what degree this is actual history or alternative history, but if we're looking at the early 1990s and, proto Al-Qaeda, the first World Trade Center bombing, and maybe if those things go off in a, if we had 2001 and 1993, maybe, I don't know. I'm now wildly speculating, because it really, Trevor Bender absolutely was completely the creator. I mean, I was there, but I was merely in an Overwatch, if anything, at most. It's his creativity that yielded Labyrinth Awakening and Labyrinth Forever War. And so, I think the next person to ask is Trevor, or is that? Can you tell us? Is that you? And what is it going to be?
Okay. We will live in suspense for a little bit longer. John, tell us about Space Corp expansion.
Well, you'll probably stay in suspense regarding that too. Regarding space, but the next expansion that I'm working on, and I've been discussing it with Jason Carr as well, and Mike Law, who's a big Space Corp devotee. I'm looking at taking a closer look at the first leap out from the solar system, the first interstellar exploration and development efforts. In the game, you start with a board that's just Earth out to Mars, and then the second board is the entire solar system, and the third board is like 20 star systems out to like 25 light years from here, 20 light years from here, and there's something in between those 2 and 3, I think. And so this board takes a closer look at just getting out to Alpha Centauri and things within 7 or 8 light years. And in the third board in the original game, which was called, the board was called Starfarers, kind of abstracted what you were doing in the second board so that it could have more stuff at a larger scale. But some players didn't like that. They wanted to still kind of do things on individual worlds and feel like there was more involved. So we're taking a closer. The idea is it's an independent game, but it can also be played in place of Starfarers if you want to play the whole thing. So it's going to take a closer look at what it means to get out there, and then the difference between just exploring and then actually colonizing with things like generation ships and that sort of stuff. So it'll be more of a developmental game, and with more opportunity for interaction between the players. In Starfarers, you kind of went to one area and someone else went to another. But here there will be more need for cooperation given the scale and the kind of the monumental undertaking it is to get out there. So won't say much more than that, but that's the tack I'm taking on this. We might call it like Space Corps Alpha Centauri, for example, when it's done.
It's gonna be a standalone.
It'll be a standalone. It also can be tacked on to the existing game.
I love that. I think that creates a lot of value.
Good.
Well, good job.
Right.
John, there is a question related to that. Actually,
Yeah.
John, if I might ask, a Molotov Cocktail is asking, he says, is the regarding Space Corps still based on the Space Corps books, or is it deviating from that?
Well, it's still following the overall plan of those books. You know, those books haven't even left the solar system yet. You know, and that he's Einar Fuglsang, the author, has gotten out to like the asteroid belt, and that's as far as he's gotten. So, but the longer term vision of those books is that there is this kind of evolution of humanity based on discovery and exploitation of exoDNA and what that can do to our kind of medicine and our physiology. So that he's hardly started to explore, but Space Corps, the game, you know, looks at that bigger picture, the same bigger picture that the author of Space Corps is looking at. So yes, it's still related to that.
Good. Luke, if you want to jump in, feel free.
I don't have anything right now.
You don't have to.
I have a couple of. I have a question for John and for Volko. If
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Mike. A little bit. So, and John, I'm kind of curious too. You know, with a game of this scope and with all of the varieties of adventure in there, it certainly seems like kind of a design and a developmental challenge. I'm wondering if you might talk a little bit about like what have been some of the biggest hurdles you've faced so far in bringing Away Team from what's in your head to reality.
It is just the scale of what has to be created for it. I wanted to create something that was engrossing enough and gave enough hours of play that you felt like you went through like a whole TV series by the time, not one episode, but you know, several seasons of a show, kind of, by the time you got through it, and yet looking forward to what the next season might bring in a sequel as well.
Right.
So, but that level of writing required close coordination between. We have like 5 writers who touched the project so far, and kind of seeking both individual creativity and also a unified vision at the same time. I never wanted to say to someone, no, you can't go in that direction, because yes, you can.
Right.
But at the same time, you know, controlling an overall book of the narrative, right? Like a showrunner kind of, you know.
Right. Is there any kind of like a choose your own adventure type element of, because I've worked a little bit with coding, and in choosing your own adventure, one of the things I found hard with it was, as your story has so much variety, it's really hard to make sure you don't have loose ends that end up nowhere, or to make sure that everything can still come back together at the same time. Has that been kind of an issue with Away Team, or is that pretty much taken care of by the structure that you've got?
I think the structure takes care of that. I mean, it doesn't end up going like that. It goes like this, kind of. Ultimately, the story ends at a certain point in Earth history, but the state of that history will be affected by what you've done. Because you're not only exploring over space, but also over time. The longer you take in terms of years to get through the 7 systems, I'm going to say the worse it is for humanity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there is an element of urgency there, perhaps.
Yes, and that unfolds. That element of urgency isn't there when you start, but it builds as you go.
Okay, so you're kind of, to not give away any spoil, you kind of discover or uncover the need for urgency as you're moving through the game.
Yes.
Every time you speak about it, I want it more. I can tell that just from kind of seeing the things on my channel. It's been, you know, as soon as I mention it, you'll be like 3 or 4 comments of people say, I cannot wait for this game. So yeah, I did to see it move forward.
I mean,
Volko, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's not a legacy game in that, you know, you can play it more than once. However, the overall the big story, the big reveal, you will know if you play it
Right.
again. However, we will have versions of the game where you can play it over and over again as well, just one system, right? And then that's replayable, but it doesn't have the epic story.
I might have this wrong, but I think if I remember in the early literature, this is what I think you would term like a 60-hour adventure.
If you play the whole epic, it'll be at least 60 hours. Yeah,
right.
Maybe more, depending on if you have to. Sometimes you have to go back to a system again if you didn't quite get it right.
Oh, okay.
That's what adds the time element that you're trying to avoid.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you also fail or die or something and then just have to start the whole thing all over? Or
that's rare but possible. Certainly people in your crew die, and then you're dealing with noobs replacing experienced people, and you have to manage that. But yes, it is possible. It's definitely possible for the whole thing to blow up in certain pathways. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I know we had an announcement in the latest GMT update about Founders of Ravik. Andrew Cook is posting a related question, perhaps to that. Any other games brewing in the Away Team universe beyond Founders of Ravik and Away Team?
If someone else wants to brew them. This will be big enough for me. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And Volko, if I might ask a quick follow-up to Coast Watchers, because it's something that a number of people asked about. I know that it wasn't originally designed with a solo mode.
Right.
As soon as I mentioned it on the channel a little while ago, there were immediately people that were like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was going to have a solo mode. And I'm not sure how closely connected you are to the development of that, but I was wondering if you might speak to some of the challenges behind that, because it's to me on the surface of it, it doesn't seem like it's an easy thing to do when you've got so much hidden information and subterfuge to design a system.
Yeah. I mean, my original interest in the question was definitely, two-player, because the essence of it is hiding and spying and hunting and that kind of thing, with both stand-up blocks and hidden counters and hidden cards as well. But I received a commission from Gene to take a stab at solitaire, and I'm very much involved in that. So I did my own first draft of a rather primitive allied solitaire, and then our lead playtester, Todd Quinn in Australia, did a kind of a version 2.0, and we've now been working together. So we have I think a pretty good rhythm going. And based on that model of the Allied Solitaire, I've now done the Japanese that I mentioned. So they are my co-designs. So there's indeed a lot in them. And then so the biggest challenge. So unless you're John Butterfield, I think there's an inherent challenge in taking a game that is built to be balanced for two or multiple players, and then bring some of those players to life in a way that is challenging enough, because human beings just tend to be more innovative and clever than whatever algorithm you're putting in the game. So I anticipate that that's going to be the main challenge here as well. Right now, the solitaire game uses almost all of the elements, the cards, the actions, whatever that you have in the two-player game. And you have to give the bot some cheats to have a chance. But I think the cheats hopefully are clever enough that they leave you with the detailed fabric of the two-player game, just in a slightly different way that makes it sufficiently challenging. And for that, testing will tell. And if the answer to that turns out to be no, as we're testing, then how do we fix that? That will be, that will, I think, be the big challenge.
All right. Thanks. I look forward to the result.
Thank you.
Somebody asked earlier, can you find that for me, Mike? They asked about
Was it the question about GMT bottlenecks?
Yeah, the bottleneck.
Yeah, I'll put that up there. I was thinking that more for you. I wanted to let Volko and John go. Here we have it. A question for GMT. What is the current bottleneck right now? Are you looking for more design submissions, or are you happy with the pace? So a couple questions in there, I think.
That's 3 questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a bottleneck, but it doesn't mean we're not moving ahead smartly. We have 10 products at the printer right now. There's going to be a couple more pretty soon. We're always looking at this development, art, production, how they come together. We're not going to have the artists and the production department push games out the door that aren't well developed. We're just not. So a lot of times the holdup, if there is one, is the development team or the designers are coming to us and saying, wait, we still need another round of testing. And I'm 100% for that. There's never a schedule that says, no, you can't test anymore. We want it to be as good as we can make it before it hits art and before it hits production. Sometimes a bottleneck can be art. We only have so many artists. Right now, we work with 103 designers, which is a little crazy. I know, but they're not all doing games at the same time. But we can get in spots where we have 10 or 15 designs that are ready, but only 8 artists to work on them or something like that. And you see something in our production update every month. One of the categories is awaiting artist assignment. So that's what happens with those. They're pretty much done, but we're waiting to get them to art. So that can be a bottleneck. And really, once we get development and art done, it's off to the printer. Kai's handling production, and she's doing a great job with it. So I'm not sure that at any given time we do have a bottleneck, but I don't think there's an overall bottleneck. In terms of more design submissions, you would think with all those designers, my answer would be no. But we've never wanted to have a closed shop. I mean, honestly, I could take 10 of our designers and go forward with them forever and ever and be eternally happy. I could personally. And they'd be my friends, and my favorite designers. But that wouldn't be what serves customers' interests best. And so we like to run an open shop so that somebody can come in, somebody like Sam London, who we're going to have on later today, who has really good ideas, who I don't want to typecast him, but he reminds me so much of Chad Jensen, just an incredible amount. And he comes in and he's new to GMT. Do we tell Sam no when he's got these great games? I'm not going to do that. I want Sam to be part of our team because he brings something to the table that our customers are really going to like. So yeah, I'm always looking for design submissions, but you probably have noticed that we're not putting a ton of things up on P500. Like in the old days, you'd see 5 or 6 games on P500 in a month. That doesn't happen anymore. We've got a little bit more of a governor on those so that development and art can keep up. And am I happy with the pace? Last year we did 49 products. That was too fast, I think, just me personally. In the first quarter, we're a much slower pace than that. And personally, I would say that's not quite fast enough. Somewhere in between there. But the problem is it's not a perfect system where, people have real lives and things happens and products get need more testing, or an artist has to say, hey guys, I'm out for a month because I got a family emergency. Those things happen all the time with us. And so we just kind of try to roll with them and make sure that our team members know that family is first, and go take care of that. Sometimes it's a health thing. Go take care of your health. And then when you're ready, come back. And unfortunately, sometimes that means that, your favorite, a customer's favorite product is delayed for a bit. But in general, if you look back over the last 3 or 4 years, yeah, I'm really happy with the pace we're going at. But we're constantly having to look at that and say, how do we improve this? I hope that's helpful.
All right, so I think now we are transitioning into our second block. John and Volko, welcome to stick around. We'd love your feedback and commentary if you want to. And
feel free to ask questions, guys, if you want to.
Yes. I think we have a few more people who we're going to add in now.
I can pull on our next wave here. They keep coming.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to Mark Herman and Brian Train and Kai Jensen. Thank you guys for joining us.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
Hello.
Let's start with them like we did with John and Volko, and we'll start with Kai because I like her better than the other. No, I'm just kidding. We'll start with Kai, and just tell us what you're working on right now in just a few minutes, and then we'll go to Brian, then we'll go to Mark.
Okay. Currently on deck for me is the tail end of Fighting Formations, the U.S. 29th Infantry Division. I have finished the historical notes, and I'm going back through all the different booklets that are involved in it and dropping in the final art. And then I think we're off to proofing. So that's going to be a week or two, and I'll be able to hand those files over. We completed playtesting about a week or so ago, and so that one's ready to move. After that, I'm jumping back to the Combat Commander, pulling together the paperwork for the Master Edition, and also completing the artwork for the Minor Nations that I wanted to add there. And I completed editing on Wolfpack and Congress of Vienna, which are both heading off to print shortly. And I am also doing editing right now for Hannibal's Revenge, which is also on my desk. I'll be finishing that one up at the end of this month.
All right, thanks, Kai. Brian, how about you?
Okay, I guess you're asking about GMT related stuff. So China's war is done, has been more or less done for some time, or at least my part is done. We're selecting art for the cards now, doing layout, and Jason and company are doing work on the solo system, the playbook, and the tutorial scenario. So, it's getting there. It's getting closer and closer. I think we're quite close. Outside of GMT, doing lots of stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing you at Consum World Expo, show you what I've been up to the last 4 or 5 years. Doing a lot of stuff right now in urban warfare, modern urban warfare.
I'm looking forward to seeing where you are with that Power Politics game we looked at a few years ago.
Yes, it's very different, and I've been working on it with a big name designer, and I'm looking forward to showing it to you. But I've got also another coin system, GMT coin system game that I'd like to show to you, but I'm afraid it's pretty unsaleable, I think, in terms of numbers. But you'll see when you see it.
Okay. I mean, have you looked at some of the other coin titles we have? At one time, somebody would have said those were unsaleable too.
This one's painfully limited in its audience. Put it that way.
Well, we'll take a look. Thanks, Brian. I appreciate
if
that.
you build it, they will come.
I'd like to think so. We'll see. It's up to you.
Thanks, Brian. Mark Herman, come out of the shadows. Step forward. Talk to us. What are you working on?
I guess the closest thing, I got to send a note to Dom and to Kai, but the book is, I think we're in final lay down on the book. Mm-hmm. So we'll deal with that shortly. And then I just had, I think you might have seen some of the pictures I posted. We've got Army of the Potomac is moving along. We been fighting the campaign game and still tuning that a little bit, but we're not changing the core system, so it's really the overland campaign rules and just general trying to get things to work out the way I think they need to work out, and that's going very well. I even have a young intern who figured I got to do all the putting hexagons on ancient maps, so that's really working out pretty easily. That's cool. This next young man is going to college shortly. He sends me a note. I'm having trouble with this software. Do you know what to do? I said, I'm 70. And that was the only answer. He figured it out, but I wasn't going to be able to help him, so I don't know. Then Jeff and I, we had a good sit down. I was at the point where Triumvirate was done and I wasn't happy with it. And we sat down and we sort of re-engineered it. And we just had a play test of a portion of the re-engineered part. Now we've got more re-engineered. So I would say that one, as you were saying, it wasn't ready, and I wasn't ready. It wasn't ready. But now I actually like the game now. I liked it before, but now I really like the game now. So we'll continue testing and get that squared away. And then the thing that's really been really going well is Defiance. I think that is definitely starting to, I finished all the design work, the order of battle's done. We're in testing, but I think it's going exactly now I'm very happy with it. It's really its own thing now. It's not. It has the bones of Flashpoint Golan, but it's not Flashpoint Golan anymore. Other than the bones, but I really do like the game now. I gave a demo earlier on that, and I also gave a demo earlier on Rebel Fury. So that's what I'm doing, for right now.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. What's been your biggest challenge with Defiance? And I'm going to make an assumption here that warfare is changing. Okay, so how has that challenged you guys from the design side with Defiance?
Well, actually, in a weird way, the sad. I mean, look, the whole situation is beyond sad. But what I've learned from the sadness is that the things that I worked on in the Pentagon through the 90s, through the 80s and the 90s, was accurate. And so Flashpoint Golan represented those things to begin with. So, and remember, the game is covering only, I would say that if all goes well, people will have the game physically in their hands somewhere around the 3rd anniversary of the war, unless it ends, which I don't see at the moment happening. And it only covers the first 2 months. So it's more what has happened lately that is, it just shows what happens when you start running out of ammunition, what that can do to you. The firing rates are prodigious, and there's a lot of lessons in that, but the game handled that before. So that was just a matter of tuning, how much resupply you have for all that artillery. But artillery was always important. Indirect fires were important. I think the only thing I really changed is that it appears that whereas in Flashpoint Golan, the amount of air superiority you had determined, your ability to detect things moving around the battlefield. I think that that was done in the 90s. Nowadays, I don't think anything moves around very far before it's seen by something, and so that allowed me sort of to take out a whole procedure because why roll the dice for something that's basically going to happen anyway. So we've been able to sort of that. And I've changed the whole combat system and everything. Like I said, it's really made great strides. But the thing that's really interesting, and why you do a game like this is, it's been fascinating to me that air superiority. I mean like the traditional, jet fighters and all that don't seem to be what they were. I mean, they're firing missiles at each other a lot, and there's air defenses. But it seems like ground-based air defenses, if properly constituted, basically can neutralize very high performance aircraft. That seems to have been something that we saw that I had hypothesized and actually dealt with that a while back in the 90s. We actually did a series of war games on it. But it looks like that is, the technology has gotten such that I would say that the ground-based air defenses have gotten, Iron Domes and our various systems, even the Russian ones, they're pretty effective. So yeah, you can get planes in, but they're almost like guerrilla. It's almost like, they're sneaking in, or they're firing, or they're getting up high and firing something from very, very long range.
Right.
Also, I've been interested in the fact that hypersonic weapons is not, everybody was getting all, I don't think the hype has matched the hypersonicness, if I could say it that way.
Well, thanks. Appreciate those insights.
Mark, there's a follow-up question to this.
I'm trying. It's a long. I'm reading.
Okay.
We'll come back to you in a minute, Mark.
Yeah,
okay?
You guys talk. I got to read it. What's this?
All right, Kai. Tell me. Can you tell me a little bit about what may be coming without giving away everything in Combat Commander world?
Yeah, that's going to be a little vague. Let's see. We already have Island Hopping as a new battle pack for the Pacific. That's up on P500. I have 6, possibly 7 total Combat Commander projects in the works right now. The first of which I'm hoping we will be announcing in about October. But we're expanding areas that we're covering. We're expanding into different time periods. So we're taking the CC system out of World War II and bringing it to different eras. I'm working with a number of different designers, most of whom are first-time designers. So this has been a fun process, walking them through the system and dealing with the specificity of Chad's rules. You know, that they do mean exactly what they say. And if you need something else, we have to write a new special rule to go for covering anything else, because you can't just stretch the rules. They mean very specifically what they say. So it's been kind of fun walking people through that. But it's going to be a handful because there's a lot of them in the works. And I should take this opportunity to apologize to those people who are waiting for the Master Edition and the minors, because that's on me. Looking back on it, should not have combined those two and should have just let them be 2 separate things. And that was my bad, because it's the minors that are holding me up. So otherwise I could have had that Master Edition out. But in terms of the general CC world, yeah, there's more coming, and it's not just World War II anymore.
Okay.
There is
Also blankets.
And blankets.
Yes, blankets.
Yes.
And
I'm
puzzles,
creating
And
500 puzzles that use those same maps, but they don't have any hex numbers on them, because that would make the map too easy, or the puzzle too easy.
Right.
Yeah. And thank you for buying that, Volko. That's very cool. And they're super soft.
They are.
Yeah.
Is that really a Combat Commander blanket?
It is.
Yeah,
Hey,
this
Mike,
is my favorite.
I thought you said
board.
you read our update every time, Mike. Those are in there every month.
Oh my goodness.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
There's a link. You can get any of the original 24 maps from Europe and Med, and the first 12 maps from Pacific. I've already done all those.
Oh wow.
And they're made out of a fabric called minky that feels like, I don't know, like bunny fur. It's amazingly soft.
It looks really soft. I think.
It's the Aura Creek. See, it just takes you to New Guinea. Look at that. Isn't that
Isn't
beautiful?
that great?
Leland Merrick.
Wow.
Yeah.
There is a production question here I put up on the below too. It's like, will the CC Master Edition maps be printed front to back with sequential numbering like the second printing?
Since I'm in charge of production these days, these maps are going to be back printed in sequential order this time, because it drives me crazy looking for maps. So 1 and 2 will be a pair, 3 and 4 will be a pair, because my OCD will not let me rest unless I get this sorted out. So yeah, we're getting that organized.
Nice. That sounds like a strong yes there too.
Oh, yes. It drove me crazy the first time. And since I was doing all the training at conventions, finding those maps drove me nuts. So yes, that will be corrected.
All right. Should we go back to Mark on the question for Defiance?
Yes. Yeah, I've absorbed it now. I think that the answer is unclear. So the reality is, when you get down to electronic warfare, you've got various, how radar and there's various other kinds of microwave systems, how they work, and how what you're in can or can't be detected. There's a lot of complexity there, and do you have the exact right pod to jam and or mask yourself? It's a lot to do with a lot, but I would say that overall the ground-based systems have gained an edge, especially when you think about it from a cost-benefit analysis. In other words, a ground-based system is a heck of a lot cheaper to make and proliferate than there is to make a $100 million jet. If you've ever seen an actual fighter jet made, it's basically like Etsy with engineers. I mean, they're basically handmade things. They don't make a lot of them, but literally humans sit there and put them together. It's like a big Lego set, and if you see them in the factory, so they're horribly expensive. And I think ultimately, like as I used to work on network-centric warfare, the cheap and the proliferated are going to dominate. And look at what's going on with the drones. I mean, so that was predicted long ago by me and Admiral Sobrowski, and that is holding true. And as I said, I can make for $10 million, I can make 100,000 things to try to shoot down your $100 million thing. I'm gonna come out ahead in that game eventually.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Brian, I want to go back to you for a minute and China's war, if you don't mind. Can you tell us a little bit about how that one is different? And every coin game so far is just a little bit different. What's unique about China's war?
Well, China's War is the first coin system game to cover a World War II theater of operations. It was quite the largest theater of operations. I think it's got one of the largest maps because it stretches all the way from north of Beijing to French Indochina. Covers the largest amount of population because each population point is around 10 million people. So there's that. It's also interesting in that you have a situation where one player is invading and they're opposed by 3 different defenders. So the Chinese factions are the nationalist government, a Republic of China, the regional warlords that are nominally under control of the Republican government, and the Communist Party, which is also has, at least in name, has a united front with the Republican government. So they're all this Japanese invading against this anti-Japanese coalition. Only one of the 4 factions is a truly insurgent faction, and that's the CPC. There are some nationalist guerrillas in the game as well, but they're not mobile. And they don't perform the same way the Chinese communists do, who behave much more like the kind of insurgent faction that we've come to expect, like the Taliban or the FLN in colonial twilight. It's interesting also in that this particular game has a really heavy emphasis on lines of communication. A lot of people, I think, who are new to the coin system tend to kind of glide right by the lines of communication in games that feature them. And they tend to try to just treat them as, at first at least, they treat them as like a border between regions, and they just treat it like another kind of area movement game. But when the light bulb goes on and they start to really learn to exploit the lines of communication for movement and resources and so on and so forth, that turns the coin system game from an area movement game into something really different. In this game, you really have to do that from the get-go because Japanese victory in the game is determined, very, very strongly by how much they dominate the network of railroad and rivers that are the lines of communication. And that models the historical nature of the Japanese occupation, which some historians have called a dot and line kind of occupation, because they were just interested in taking the cities and the larger towns and the river, canal, and railroad systems that connected them. So chances were during the war, if you lived more than 5 or 10 miles from a major town or a railroad, you probably wouldn't see too many Japanese troops unless they were on one of their infrequent sweeps through the countryside to clean up guerrillas. So in that particular sense, this game is quite different from the other sort of 20th century period games that have come along.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate that answer. The LOCs, to me, the first time I ever played Andean Abyss, I didn't get it. I mean, I did what you're talking about, but by the time I got to A Distant Plain, I was like, you got to use the LOCs, and I was helping players learn how to use them as the Taliban, because that's how you win, at least in my opinion, as the Taliban.
Yeah, it's very important. And I mean, it is so important in this game that you can't possibly evade that lesson. Or otherwise, it's not going to be a great game, at least not for the Japanese. And there's some other twitches in it as well.
Thanks. Mike, do you feel like jumping back in here? You got any questions for these guys?
I had a question for Brian in terms of to follow up on the China's war. I'm noticing that the solitaire rating is way at the top of the scale. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Jason and Joe are working on the solitaire system. I believe it's going to be a card-based one, not the flowchart. I don't have anything to do with it. Over time, I haven't worked on any of the solitaire systems in the coin system games, so I'm letting these guys have their head on it. I absolutely trust them to do a great job on it. But my belief is that it will be is it the Arjuna system is what we call it? It's just the general name for the. So I believe there'll be like a deck of cards to handle it instead of the flow charts that we've been using. So that definitely there will be a solitaire system for that, but I won't be involved in it.
Great, thanks. And Mark, I was wondering if I could ask you a little bit about Rebel Fury and Army of the Potomac and things like that. I think that, there are games that come out, right? And you see them, they make kind of a flurry on social media, and you see people where they're arriving, right? So you see the boxes show up and things like that. And then you see games where, like, over the course of the next month, you see them on people's tables and they're playing. It's kind of a playable game. It just makes it to the table really easy, tableable game. And I know that was kind of one of the design intents of that, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and your reaction to just the reception of the game, which to me seems like it's just been remarkably positive. People talking about the games they're having, and they're actually getting the game to the table really quickly.
Yeah, well, as John can attest, most of my games are unplayable, so it's a good thing. It's a good thing that I finally did one that people want to play.
Just like the campaign in Pacific War, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everybody wants to play the campaign. Yeah, those crazy guys. So, and John might have some thoughts here. When we were young, we were at SPI, and quad games were very, very popular for the very reason that, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, Volko, I just saw a picture of you and Duca playing Antietam Blue and Gray at Antietam. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah, right in view of the sunken road. Yeah, 1975
That's
design.
Awesome.
Yeah. I had to have to say the art still looks great after 50 years.
Revenue knew what he was doing. But that's the point. In other words, I guess the only thing you couldn't handle was the gale force winds took you out. I guess it's
it was a little breezier than we were expecting, and that finally defeated us. But we made it through turn 8 out of 10 in the field. And if it wasn't for a particular gust, we would have not only played the game and tabled it, but finished it under field conditions.
That's very nice. I think there should be like a GMT medal for that or something. But so. It's interesting. I actually, I got to give Roger McGowan, sort of like, origin credit. He came to me and said he wanted this introductory game. And so when I decided to do Gettysburg, I really didn't want to just do blue and gray quad. I mean, I could have done a blue and gray quad Gettysburg in, about 10 minutes. It's not that hard. But I really did try to reimagine it. And I feel like I got there. I mean, I just really feel like the game is just, there's 3 levels of complexity in game design, and the one that the Euro Ameritrash guys sorted out faster than we ever did in the war game industry was the teachability of the game. That's one level. There's a lot of different. You can have complex strategy with simple rules, and you can have a complex game with complex strategy. I know might have done a few of those, but doing a very teachable war game is a different kind of problem, and Rebel Fury is just easy to teach. I mean, you can look at my video, you can read the rules. I mean, it's just not that hard. But the things that can happen can be rather complex. And I think the thing that also Rebel Fury found I purposely ended up with a scale that there's really no games on at that scale right now. I mean, there's various times that there have been, but you've got your 3-dog bird, blind swords, tactical. You've got your Great Battles of the American Civil War, operational. You've got Simonich's Civil War and Eric Lee's Civil War and My For the People at that other level. But between the two, and the key thing about why the grand tactical level is it's really all about maneuver. In other words, you want to put yourself in a position where the other guy has to attack you. That's really a Civil War battle. And again, given the statistics, it's that ability to maneuver to a position the other guy has to throw you out of. That's how you win battles in the Civil War, and why it's very defense dominated and all those kind of things. And so if anybody's had a problem, it's that they're very frustrated attacking defended positions, and General Grant would agree with you. So that's, it's good.
Good. Thanks, Mark.
There is a related question to that, Mark. It's like, will Army of the Potomac be like Rebel Fury, where you could play multiple battles simultaneously?
Oh, so what this person, the answer is yes, because every battle has its own set of counters. That's the key. And remember, this is not that many, because of the low counter density. That's not a big problem. Kai, don't get worried, okay? It's all good. But every battle will have its own unique set of counters, which could be redundant. In other words, Grant's Overland campaign, the guys that are at Spotsylvania 2 and the guys who are in North Anna are effectively the same units, but you'll have your own set. So you'll have a map, and you'll have counters that are unique. So yeah, you could play multiple battles. And the interesting thing is also that, remember, this one's going to have the 7 days battle. So you're going to have a whole different period of the war being shown on the same map that Grant's fighting on. There's a battle of Gainesville, which is in the 7 days battle. And Gainesville is, I think, about half a mile from Cold Harbor. I mean, there's a crossroads. It's all about the crossroads. They fight at crossroads, Chancellorsville, Spotsylvania Courthouse. I mean, And by the way, as Volko can tell you, Spotsylvania Courthouse is related to his hunt for Blackbeard, I believe, isn't it?
In the sense that
Didn't the governor of Virginia get in trouble for ceding the land to his relatives, and he had to divert them by sending that naval expedition after Blackbeard or something?
That's right. That's right. In one respect, the hunt for Blackbeard was caused by the need to relieve the pressure on Lieutenant Governor Spotswood for creating what is now Spotsylvania County. That's right.
That's awesome.
So everything's linked.
Well, we still have Volko and John here because they're not going to be here too much longer before we just kick them out. No, I'm just kidding, guys.
Shining brightly but briefly.
I wanted to go back, Mike. Maybe you could get Hal Runner's question from 125. I'll just tell you, Volko, so you can go with it. Where might the Coast Watchers Recon series go next? I think that's not a secret right now, right?
No, it's not. In fact, it's already been out there. So this is, I don't know if you can see with the glare. This is the answer. Yeah. So I have a design. Yeah, I have a design that is it's mechanically similar to Coast Watchers, but the setting is the Battle of Verdun and concerns reconnaissance. And so you have the biplanes reconnaissance missions, the artillery spotting coordination, the balloons, the Drachenballon, the kite balloons, and also trench raids. And sort of the idea is in trench warfare, it became very difficult without cavalry being applicable in that against the fortified positions and with all the machine guns and everything. It became very difficult to know what was going on more than a couple hundred yards in front of you, and that's why the World War I aces and the dogfights and all that stuff is even happening. So this game basically focuses on that. Why are you doing all of that flying around? And then leaves the combat. The combat is still resolved, but is quite simplified and deterministic, because it's really that reconnaissance battle that's determining how well your push goes. And then there are 9 situations that are different moments in the Battle of Verdun So sometimes the Germans are attacking, sometimes the French are attacking. And victory is by achieving more of your objectives, objective cards, playing cards that are dealt to you, more of your objectives than the opponent. And you don't know what the opponent's objectives are, and you get forces for your objectives. So you don't actually know in the beginning, are you facing a large force or a small force? And then the trench raids, you're hoping, among other things, to take prisoners and plants that will reveal those enemy objectives to you. And it turns out to be quite tense. So I'm very excited about it. And it's out there in the wild. One of our Levin campaign designer friends, Mark Greenwald, has a set that he's going to be showing at cons as well. And we're so if Coast Watchers happens and folks like it, we go to World War I next, and we're done.
Beautiful. Thanks, Volko. I appreciate that. And you guys, by the way, I know you've got a seminar to do at 3, Volko. That's why we put you on early. But if you guys want to come back at 2:30, we're going to get a few other people in. You're welcome to. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time. John, I will see you Tuesday night.
Yes.
If I don't see you again today, we're going to a ball game. Go Giants. And
yeah, almost 500.
That's right. Thanks, guys, both of you, for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, all.
Hey, John, I'll see you at the our game in WBC.
Yes, with Kai. That'll be great. All right, how do I leave?
Just
we have a pair of mics ready to join, and I think Sam London as well has been trying to get on.
Click leave studio.
Remove from.
Do you want me to go? I mean, I wasn't sure.
No, stick around, Mark.
All right.
We're bringing 3 more in, or 2 more in at least.
A lot of mics,
hey guys.
I'm going to cut out myself.
A lot of mics going here.
Okay,
Thanks, Brian.
Brian. Thank you. Thanks you so much for your time, Brian. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'll see you next month in Tempe.
All right, Mike Bertucelli, Mike Sigler, welcome.
And Sam London is here as well.
Hello. Sam is here. All right. Get the whole crew.
You did it.
Well, welcome, guys.
Hello. How y'all doing?
I'll start you out the way we did everybody else. I'm going to start with Mike Bertucelli here and come along to Mike Sigler and then Sam London. Let us know in just a few minutes of what you're working on right now.
All right, I'll do that. Thank you for having me, Gene, and thanks for putting this on for the ST HistCon. It's been great. I personally have been working on Wolfpack. We just finished it basically this week. Finished with the proofreading, and it is soon to be off to print. So it's a happy day in this household. That's for sure. It's a long process, but I'm very happy with it. I'll be turning my attention back to Tank Duel, getting the second tank pack out. Jason and I have been working on that for the last month, getting that ready to go, hopefully with a reprint of the original game to get that re-spruiked up. That's on the immediate future. And then it looks like Bruce Mansfield and I will probably be doing a follow-on game for Wolfpack, and we will take it to the surface, and you will play the allies and be the escorts. And
nice.
The ultimate goal would be able to link the 2 games together to play it together. So that's our hopes. Bruce is really excited about it. That's great ideas. So we're going to start working on that here, I think, pretty soon. And then I am part of the, as you know, the development team for GMT. So I have projects, lots of development projects. One being the guy down there in the bottom corner. I will be Sam's developer for all of his craziness that's coming up. One game that I'm very excited about is this space game that I think a lot of you have seen at the cons. It's going to be pretty awesome. Really excited about that. And I'm working with Kai. She didn't really mention one other combat commander related secret that I can't say too much about. But, I think people are going to say, what are you doing? So I'm working with Kai on a combat commander thing. So yeah, that's what's going on with me right now.
Is it the thing I saw at the weekend, Mike?
Might be that thing.
Okay. All right.
People are gonna go, wait,
Well,
wait.
then it's
wait,
going to be
what?
really cool. Yeah.
Hopefully, yes.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Mike Sigler.
Hello, how y'all doing? Well, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate the chance to meet y'all and talk about the stuff we're working on. So, I'm the developer for Francisco Gradil's Paco's QS Regio, the 30 Years War. So I've been working on that with him now for a couple of years. It's a pretty interesting project. I kind of walked in. It's all Volko's fault too. So. Yeah, I was actually, so I started, the adventure starts out with he's looking for playtesters for Plantagenet, and so I'm giving him a few random ideas that I don't know where they went, but I ran random ideas, and we were talking about games we were playing, and I mentioned that I enjoyed playing great campaigns of the American Civil War, or the campaigns. And he said, well, I've got a game that I've been working on. It was actually the first game I started working on. And he drags out QS Regio. And it was pretty primitive back then. But since then, we've been working on that pretty hard. The core of it was a really interesting model. And so I offered to help him translate rules into English. And the next thing I know, I'm the developer of this thing. So here I am. So we're making some good progress. I think the system is really clean now, and I really like the way it's gone forward in the play of the game. So I think it's going to be a fascinating game. It looks like comes off as a traditional hex encounter, which it is, but it's got some twists in it, and it's a real sandbox of Central Europe and Germany. So pretty pleased with it.
All right. Thanks, Mike. All right, Sam. It's all you. What are you working on?
So first off, I'm a serial oversharer. So you kind of need to tell me off the bat how much I'm allowed to talk about, because I could just keep talking. So, yeah. How much you want to limit me?
Talk about the space game. Talk about the Amarov game, and only hint about the other one that you.
Okay. Can I talk about Firefight Tactical?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Firefight Tactical is really coming along. We're at the point where we're pretty much just waiting for art. As far as I'm aware, we're in Terry Leeds' queue, which that was actually a tremendously humbling moment for me last year. Was that, to my understanding, Terry requested working on Firefight Tactical, which I think I've come to appreciate that was probably because he acknowledged it as a challenge, which it certainly would be from a graphic design perspective. But that was still a very humbling moment for me because I love his work. But at the same time, at this point, I'm just doing play testing on the last several scenarios. Actually, earlier this morning, I did a live play test of the bot on the Mortain scenario, and I got ground into dust, which that's something that I always say is if I'm playing a solo or a co-op game and I win on the first time, I pretty much throw the game straight in the trash, because if I don't know what I'm doing and I can already beat the game, then why try to get better at it? So fair warning for anybody that's buying Firefight Tactical, my bias towards difficult bots is probably going to be in there, and it's a pretty tough monster to beat. But that's about it for Firefight Tactical. The space game that Mike was alluding to earlier is called Microverse. That one is I've been working on that game for 9 years. So there's not quite as much development required for that as some of the other stuff I'm working on. But I was up at KublaCon in Burlingame, California a few weeks ago, and I was able to showcase it there also and get a bunch of people playing it. That's a super fast playing Space 4X game. It's about 5-second player turns. It's 15 minutes per player. The real claim to fame for the game is that there's a giant number of playable civilizations in the game. I currently have 80. They will not all be in the core box, but they are all totally unique, and people kind of finding themselves in that game universe by which civilization speaks to them is a lot of the most rewarding part for me watching people play it. And then this was since I'm allowed to talk about this also, the AmRev game I'm working on is what I'm hoping will become like a series of games, because I'm really excited about the engine. It's a trick-taking game. You can think Brian Boru, except I intentionally did. As soon as I was thinking I'm gonna make a trick-taking war game, I didn't even look at that design because I didn't want to be influenced by it. But this is a wildly asymmetrical AmRev game using a trick-taking mechanism that's much more focused, at least on the British side, on the economic issues of maintaining the war. Anyway, it's a really awesome game. I have a lot of love for that system that's going to be coming out over the next couple of years, because I just loved it. It's really cool. It's a really rewarding system to play in. And then the other thing, which I'm allowed to hint at, is a sports game that is earlier in development, but my day job is I'm a data scientist, and this is a extremely stats-rich game. There's almost no stats that the player is actually presented with, but under the hood, it is extremely stats-dense. And so it's letting me kind of combine loves for building it, and I'm very much enjoying that. So that's all the GMT stuff I'm working on.
I'm really glad that you don't have a rule that if I win a game the first time you show it to me, that you throw it straight in the trash like you do with a solo game. Because we would have lost a couple of really good games.
Yeah, that was that. Some of that was intentional, and some of it isn't intentional. So
Sam has mastered the art of letting Gene win. No, I'm just kidding.
Go ahead, Mark. Mark has a question.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Sam, I actually want to ask you a question about baseball.
Sure.
So Berg and I used to play a lot of baseball games, and I would characterize 3 categories of baseball games, right? You have your Stratomatic that had it was very good at lefty righty, better than most of the other ones, really focused on that in the stats side. Then you had replay baseball, which I like because it was always the integration. It wasn't like it was either the pitcher card or the batter card, but it was the integration of the pitcher and the batter in replay baseball. And then you had what is called History Makers Baseball, which is one I also really like, good solitaire one. But I always felt like it didn't handle the pitching rotation stuff as well as replay baseball or Stratomatic. So I guess, given that as sort of a very broad spectrum, how would you sort of characterize your baseball game? Forget about the fact that it's got great statistics. I'll accept that.
All right. So first off, I didn't say it was a baseball game, but I guess I'm saying it's a baseball game now. But besides that, when it comes to sports games, there's generally been a focus on representing it from the perspective of management. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just, in my mind, been done to death. And I love some of those games, but I wanted to feel like I was on the mound, or I was at the plate. And so this is very much more a attempt. I'm not saying I succeeded, but an attempt to holistically kind of capture that feeling rather than, and that's why the stats are abstracted. It's much less about the number crunching and much more about like, okay, here I am. What am I throwing into where in the strike zone? And like based on this batter and their hot zone and that sort of thing. Mike, do you want to kind of maybe say it better than I can?
You summed up pretty well. I would say a tactical view of the game of baseball. It's very cool. It's very much the cat and mouse between the pitcher, the hitter, and then you're also working with your fielders, positioning them correctly. And I guess the amazing thing about it is the engine from what it's built around, and an app that can be, you could plug a stat in, a team in any year, and spit out the cards that you need to play the game and you could play up to the day. Like if I want to play today's Giants, I could generate that team and play with that team. Because that's the goal that we're working towards.
The other thing I'll throw onto there, Marcus, one of the things I absolutely love in baseball is kind of the for lack of a better term, the pageantry of the strain on the pitcher's arm. And so that's a core focus of the game, is this kind of you're dealing with a very different pitcher as the game goes on, and kind of knowing when's the right time to pull them out, who you're going to replace them with depending on where you pull them out in the rotation, all this kind of stuff. You're much more feeling the to the pitch story of baseball rather than just, all right, these two are against each other, roll die, that was what happened. It's the resolution is much more granular than that.
That sounds very, very cool. It's funny. Long ago, I came up with, in my mind, I mean, this is not anywhere, but that I always thought of like generals and battles have good days and bad days. And I always looked at it like a pitcher going up against a batter, and are they pitching that guy well or not? If you're pitching him well, it could be, four good throws and the guy's out, on a cold strike, or you're pitching him 11, 12, 13 pitches and eventually he gets you, that kind of, and I always looked at like generals, like, having a good day and a bad day was very much metaphorically in my mind, like that interaction. So if you need a play tester, let me know. I love baseball games. In fact,
that'd be awesome.
Sadly, my wife is, Carol, as Gene knows Carol, but she wanted to go to bed, but it was the 11th inning, for God's sake, and the Yankees and the Dodgers were tied at 0. So I wasn't going anywhere. It didn't come out well, but it was a fine game up till then.
Baseball was actually the main thing my wife and I had in common when we first got together. So we're very much baseball people.
The thing my wife and I have in common is nothing to do with baseball or games or anything else. You did well.
All right, Luke, Mike, you guys have any questions for this group?
Yeah, I have one for Mike Bertucelli. I'm curious about what made you want to design that. What was your interest?
Well, I love sub games. I've always enjoyed, playing sub games. One of my favorite games was old Avalon Hills, submarine. That was, and at the level that I like, I'm a tactical guy. I really like, everything tactical, and I really felt there weren't that many tactical, U-boat or submarine games on the market. Really, it's Avalon Hill. The rest of them are, they're a larger scale, right? The whole war, and abstract out the ins and out of maneuvering and doing all that. So what they say, if you complain about wanting a game, the designers always tell you, well, then design one. So I said, all right, I'll design one. And the funny story is that we were at GMT Weekend at the Warehouse when Jerry White's Skies Above the Reich came out. And everybody was sitting around playing it cooperatively. Right? It's a solitaire game, but there were groups of 4s and 5s playing and, playing it together. And it was like, was really cool. And Michael Law came up to me and goes, this would work. The system would work with for U-boats. And my first thought was, yeah, no way. And then I went home and came back the next day and went, I got a game. And sure enough, that kind of spurred on the whole thing with Wolfpack. And it is a solitaire game, but I like to consider a team game because it is designed to play up to 4 people, with each person, taking a U-boat on patrol. And then the game is designed so when you're done with that patrol, you set the game up in the campaign mode. You set that game up to be played by another group of people, be it the same group or, I get 3 other of my friends together and we can continue with that campaign where we left off, because it was set up by the group had it played previously, which
cool.
is a cool, you know, a little bit different mechanic. And it's working great because we're play testing. We have open campaign games going, and we call a group of, hey, who's available? And, you know, 4 show up, and they find a boat, a really cool crew they want to take out, because there's a little bit of an RPG element to the game where you're constantly improving your crew as they go out on patrols and they get experience. You spend that experience points to upgrade the crews and make them better. And so, you know, you kind of get your favorites. Like, I want to take that boat out because I've been working on that crew for the last month, right? At different games. So, yeah, it's been been very, I'm very pleased with the way that turned out.
Great. Thanks for sharing about that. I
Mhm.
love solo games that can be played actually cooperatively. Like Mr. President is more fun cooperatively.
I enjoy playing Mr. President with multiple people. Exactly.
And more
Rachel and I,
for sure.
Rachel and I were just talking about that this week. We've been playing I, Napoleon. We have an advanced copy of Ted Racer's I, Napoleon here at the house. And Rachel and I were playing it together. And she said, well, there's no cooperative rules. And I said, I don't care. We enjoy the unfolding story. And it seems to me, I don't know, you know, I'm always trying to figure out what the market's doing, but it seems to me like there is a growing number of gamers who just really like to be immersed in a good story. And especially if the game has some fairly robust decision making as part of it. Like maybe something that's a roll a dice fest wouldn't be so good this way. But something that just has a decent number of decisions. I don't care if it has 2 or 3 player cooperative rules or 4 player cooperative rules. I enjoy being a 3-headed president and Mr. President, or enjoy playing a game together. Rachel and I had great fun with I, Napoleon, because the decision points were interesting. And so there was a lot of conversation back and forth and immersion in that. Now, I don't know if you guys think that way or not, but it seems to me like there's more and more acceptance or even demand in the market for games like that.
Well, like last year at Console World, our group, we were playing Mr. President. Jordan was the president. I was the Secretary of State, and, you know, everybody had their role, and we focused on our role, and we played it cooperatively, and lost in the 11th and a half hour of a 2-day game.
And then you guys played the most depressing game in the world.
I go to bed. Hey guys, just, you know, get us through this last, you know, quarter of a turn, and we'll finish it up in the morning. I come down the next morning, and Iran and Israel went to nuclear war, and yeah, it wasn't pretty.
Another great thing about playing a solo game with multiple people is you have someone to blame your die rolls on. So
we have Rachel for that.
Oh, Rachel's the worst die roll in the world.
No. I easily hold that. Just watch my Pacific War Watchtower. 1% chance, right on film. Very nice.
I don't know. My 4 exchanges at Antietam the other day weren't too good either.
We do have a question from Molotov Cocktail that is a little bit to the side, but he's curious, what are the panelists' favorite games to play for fun, not related to research or their own work? I know, Kai, you've been patiently waiting, and maybe want to start us off on that one?
My answer a few years ago would have been Totaler Krieg. The Axis Empires, or the second edition. Chad and I busted that out at any opportunity. We played at a con, we played at home. If we had a couple of evenings where we didn't have anything planned, that was instantly on the table. These days, I'm mostly doing solo games. So my fun right now, God, if I had to narrow it down to one game, no can do. I can't. The solo games that are coming out, because I'm getting advanced copies, I'm poking around at systems and trying that out. So that's a whole new avenue for me. I didn't play solo games before because I never had to. But I don't think I have a current favorite.
I know I've been enjoying, we've been playing at the cons lately, Kai and me and a few other people, we've been playing this War of Mine and have had a depressingly fun time using this War of Mine.
I've played that on the
game ever, Mike.
I've played that on Steam a little bit too.
I mean, Mike, I'm gonna change my. That is what's sitting on my game table right here. It's so depressing, but it's really well designed.
It's very well designed, and it's a great co-op game.
What else you guys got?
I guess I'll go. So this is kind of a cop-out answer, but my favorite game right now, and I'm gonna give two answers because my favorite game right now is Tank on Tank by Lock and Load Publishing, because my 6-year-old is playing it with me and he's really enjoying it. It's kind of like trying to get him started young on war games. We actually started with Memoir 44, but that's a hard thing to do with a young kid to, kind of keep him on task with what the cards are. But the Tank on Tank system is so simple that he can jump onto it. So I've been actually really enjoying playing that. But as far as like my non-playing with my kids time, actually the most recent game I was really impressed with is not a war game, which was Let's Go to Japan from AEG. That was a really outstanding kind of set collection tableau building game that I really enjoyed. War game front, I don't think I've played a war game since Weekend. Like I've been more doing, again, not including my stuff, which is an important part of this question. So yeah, that's probably my answer right now.
Yeah, for me right now, I mean, I've been jumping around. I guess I'll go with 2 right now. So I reached into the Wayback Machine and pulled out B-17 Queen of the Skies the other day, and was messing around with that on the solo front because that was just, a long time ago. I just had a blast playing that. So I was playing that and kind of reliving the glory days and surprised by all the expansions because I kind of dropped out after that, and then the Lancasters and all the rest of that stuff was kind of interesting to see those. So that was fun. But the other thing, playing with the group I'm playing with right now, we're playing the VUCA games, the Crossing the Line, Op Theseus, and Crossing the Bug, and it's really fun to see the update of those games and to explore the system they have and the great components. I mean, it's just you pick up a game that just feels good and it's fun to play, and just so that's what I'm doing for fun. That's kind of different from what the other stuff is.
I'll jump in for a second on this one. For about 3 months, I played Plum Island Horror every chance I got. Really tremendous, immersed in the story kind of game. Asymmetric, different groups, lots of challenges. I know some people say it's too easy, for our group because we've played it enough times now. And I can see that, but it's also really easy to mod. I just find it really fascinating to come up with good strategies with all the divergent types of groups and individuals in the challenge of that game. And of course, I've seen a little bit about what they're doing for the expansion and can't wait. But after about 3 months, I finally had enough for now. And I put it aside. And in a way, this question, in a way, they're all my work, because Rachel and Luke and I we do marketing for these games, so we have to know about them. But I try to separate that, and I still like to really dig into a deep, meaty game. So Jerry and Gina did Skies Over Britain, and it's different than Skies Above the Reich and Storm Above the Reich. And I think the best way. So I haven't been able to get all the way around that game yet. And to me, that's like one of the best compliments, because I play it in bits and I'm like, yeah, I want to keep going. I want to learn more. I feel like there's a whole lot more there in depth in terms of play time and play value that I can get out of it. And so I'm over the moon about how good that game is as a fit for me personally, as a gamer. And then lately, Napoleon. I think Ted did a great job, and so did the developers. I'm looking, and he's got plans for more somebody games, and I can't wait to see him. So that's me.
How about you, Luke? Have you been playing anything?
Well, my Rocksteady is Ivanhoe, which unfortunately has been out of print for a very long time from Reiner Knizia. But I love that game. It's such a fun, it's kind of like a party level game. You can pretty much pick it up with any crowd. The strategy of the card play and the special cards to mess people up, change the color, and things like that. It's such a fun game.
So when are you going to start teaching Nora a basic version of it?
Oh man, I don't know. It's
She's
like
2.
she has to be old
Almost.
enough to understand, but young enough that she can't beat me. So I have to find that gray area.
Also, she has to be old enough not to eat the pieces.
Yeah,
Yes,
point.
that's true.
definitely.
That's the bigger one, actually.
Yeah. Non-GMT though, I've kind of been more into chess lately. Super low level and playing against super low level people, which for me, the stakes are lower and it's more fun that way. But just getting into the strategy of it is really cool. I love chess.
You got a chess master in this group right below you. So when you get good enough, just call Mark Herman.
Yeah, I'll get demolished.
Trust me, I hang around with people who are real chess masters. I am not very good.
Do we get
Mark, how about
everybody
yourself?
for that question?
I think Mark.
Yeah, Mark. Your favorite games?
There's a related question that's come up is in particular related to con games to play at cons too.
Yeah, see, it's funny. Like, in other words, so the game that I want to play and I'm going to play is I talk to Kai periodically, and she's promised to run a dominant species marine at WBC, and then I said I wanted John to play. She said, "Well, you have to ask him." As soon as I asked him, he said, "Yes." So we're looking for a 4th, but we're going to play it on Thursday night. I think that's on the calendar, and that should be a hoot. So I'm looking forward to that. So I have a rotation. I mean, favorite game. I mean, I'm saying not mine. I just recently played again Bayonets and Tomahawk, which I really think is an outstanding game.
Game.
I really like that game for a lot of reasons. I have become, and another game, believe it or not, related to it is there's this Dune. What the hell? There's a lot of Dune games, but it's got like really big miniatures. It's really pretty. But
Battle for Arrakis?
Yes, thank you very much, Mike. My biggest problem is I can't remember the names of anything I'm playing. I just know the topic. And I also been playing a fair amount of War of the Ring, also from that. I think it's the same designers, actually. I happen to love, but the point is I really like, and I'm using more of that custom dice. I really like the the War of the Ring, the unique, the custom dice. They had that in Dune. And of course, the same thing is true with the combat system in Bayonets and Tomahawks, right? The circles, the triangles, that kind of thing. I like that. I like Redmond would have loved that stuff. The use of graphics to get rid of certain levels of complexity is kind of cool. So I really like that. And, but beyond that, I've been basically, buried in a lot of my own stuff. So, but the one thing I have been playing, there's a game, I think it's come out again, but Dune Imperium I've been playing on the computer. And I got to tell you, that is an extraordinarily, you're talking about solitaire, it's computer AI, but the AI on Dune Imperium is very strong. I mean, I lost the first 36 games, I think, before I won one. So I've become a very good Dune Imperium player, by the way, as a consequence. But it really taught me a lot about how to play the game well. I haven't seen anything comparable in the solo systems out there, physical solo systems that even come close to what that thing's doing, but or Peloponnesian War. Either way, it's one or the other.
Nice.
I feel like as I see when you post on Twitter, you kind of have a rotation. You're playing a lot of different stuff and don't necessarily gravitate towards one game intensely?
Well, no, I have. There's like games that I didn't do. There's about 6 games that, like, Atlantic Chase is fantastic. I play that regularly. Imperial Struggle, right? That's the Jason Ananda game, right?
Yeah.
Yep, love that game. Sekigahara. The problem with Sekigahara is just it's almost unplayable solitaire. I mean, it's very hard to betray yourself. I mean, I guess some people are good at it if you're schizophrenic, but I can't betray myself very well. That's an extraordinarily good game. But those are the ones that I play. I play them, when I get a chance.
I like what Mark said about custom dice. I was just thinking, Sam, maybe we could teach you how to use custom dice in your game. You think?
Which game?
All of them. All of them need custom dice.
No. So do you actually know about this story?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm messing with you. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, it's an inside joke thing.
I have another thing I'm working on, of course, and I called Kai like last year. How much would it cost to do like 50 custom dice? It's like, okay, never mind. I'm gonna restart this design.
My answer is no.
Not that you can't do them. It's just you have to, gotta build into.
They're expensive.
50 of them. That's a lot.
All of us have to get games inside of a budget, and unfortunately, things like that and volume are very expensive.
Yeah, that was the one thing that was brilliant about Kickstarter is the biggest problem. Back in the day, the biggest problem about having miniatures in games wasn't that we didn't have sculpture. Back in the 1970s, people knew how to sculpt. By the way, Michelangelo. Those guys I used to hang out with, and the problem was the one-time non-recurring cost of the artist and the sculpts, and then could you sell enough not to go bankrupt? But Kickstarter, they fund the one-time non-recurring cost up front, so you get these. I mean, some of the miniatures I've seen. I mean, the games in many cases are like terrible games, but the sculpts are amazing. So I will tell you that. It's amazing how many bad games Kickstarter can put out with great miniatures.
And then they go out of business anyway.
They make the money. Going out of business isn't the problem. It's going out of business and being in debt. That's the problem.
Yeah.
So if you go out of business and you didn't lose money or didn't make a lot, all right, that's one thing. But going out and like losing your house, then not so good.
So you guys who are in the chat, feel free to ask us some more questions. I'm going to spend a little time here just talking about where we're going to be over the summer. Summer's typically convention season. So just real quick, I'm actually taking off for a 9-day trip in about 2 days. But this one's not really customer facing, it's team facing. So I'm going to be in San Francisco for 3.5 days. I will see you there, Kai. John, Michael Wall, who's one of our developers, and Gina Willis. And we're going to go to some Giants games and talk about what we're working on, and maybe a food tour in there somewhere, just because. Why not? And then I'm flying up to Seattle to spend 3.5 days with 5 guys on our team up there. And Saturday, because I have no room in my luggage to take games. So I don't know what we're playing Saturday, but we're going to supposedly the best game / restaurant. There's a big game store with a restaurant in it in Seattle. And we're going to be there on Saturday playing whatever those guys bring, whatever they want to play. So I'm probably going to learn some new games. It won't be quite as good as your house, Sam, but I'll learn some new games. So that's very near term for me. And then WBC. Who here is going to be at WBC? Mark, Kai, anybody else? Volko, I know will be there.
John will be there.
John will be there.
Nick Karp is coming. Nick Karp.
Oh, wow. Nice. It's always good to see Nick. And then actually before that, in Tempe at CSW Expo, who's going to that? Kai, you not going there this year? You are going. Jason Carr will be there with me. Rachel will be there. And looks like not any of this group, but we generally have 10 to Brian Train will be there. We generally have 10 to 15 of our designers there. So if you guys are going to CSW Expo, come over to the GMT room. John gives us a room there where we test things and hang out or find us in Open Gaming, and we'll see you there. We don't have an official presence at Origins, but Jason and Ananda are going to be there to receive they're putting Twilight Struggle into the Hall of Fame or whatever for Gamma. And so Jason and Ananda are going to be there to accept that award. Jason and Carl will be there. They'll work on some projects together. But if you guys want to meet them, look them up. They'll be there for 4 or 5 days. And what did I miss?
I'll be at Newport.
Oh yeah, I can't even believe I missed that because SD HistCon is sponsoring this right here. Yeah, right. But they've got the Newport, Rhode Island convention, which last year was top notch. And all we really have to say is Mark Herman will be there, and I know you guys all want to go. That's one.
I know Volko is going to be there. Harold, of course, will be there. And
I'll be there.
Who was that?
I'll be there.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. Well, great. I look forward to Carol. I actually talked Carol into coming, and of course Volko will be there. And I think Jeremy White was there last year. I don't know if he's coming this year, but that was. I can't wait to see his Pacific Atlantic Chase or whatever he's calling it.
And back to WBC for just a second. Those of you who don't get a chance to see Tony Curtis very often or Andy Lewis, they'll both be there running a booth for us, as well as participating in tournaments. So pretty much through the summer, we break up all these different conventions, and so everybody gets to see some of the GMT team and have the opportunity to interact or go grab a bite to eat and just check in, ask questions, whatever. So
I need a demo table at WBC.
You need a demo table? Talk to Andy Lewis. He'll fix you up.
Oh, so I know who he is. Yes.
Yeah, and Andy, he'll handle it.
I'll send him an email.
All right, let me see. Oh, I'm laughing. Hal Roner, you cracked me up. Okay, honest time. Luke's going to be the first one. Which members of the panel don't fully read Gene's email? Be honest. That's so funny.
I read the whole thing.
Well, about 10%.
Most of it.
No. When I get email from Gene, I just call him on the phone. It's too hard. Oh my God.
I mean, you have to assume some basic level of reading comprehension, and so I just give Mark a pass because I know it's not that he doesn't want to; it's that he can't.
That's it, exactly.
And Sam, you're out. I'm sorry, you got no excuse.
There's a lot in there. And I know I'm going to get an abridged version with GMT LDR anyway. So
by the way, that's we should talk about that because, I have never been the kind of person, leader, whatever you want to say, that says, look, this is the way we do it, and you guys just going to have to accept it. We have a lot of customers who are readers, and they like to know everything they can know about us. So that monthly newsletter, we do that for those guys. But
it's very effective.
Not too long ago, Luke and Rachel came in and said, for people that don't want to read that much or don't have that much time to read, or they said some people in our generation just don't care to read it, then let's do a video.
Don't have the reading comprehension for it.
Or like in Mark Herman's column, right? Yeah. So let's do this video thing where every month after the update comes out, the next day we do this GMT LDR, too long didn't read. And Luke and Rachel host that. And I think they've got it to about 12 minutes now, where in a 12-minute video, they go through the whole update and highlight the things that they think are most important. Sometimes it's not the same things that I think are most important, but I think we're basically covering it either way. So, and then Rachel's using Inside GMT to meet yet a different need for content and information about GMT from our designers and developers. So we're trying in all those ways, and including engaging with you guys on social media, to be responsive to our customers, to give information about the company. And so, and we're always open to feedback. So let us know what you think.
I'll just say, if anyone has been reading the full monthly and skipping the TLDR because you think you know it all, it's worth watching just because it's hysterical. So
Yeah, Rachel and Luke are
especially on the
pretty
days
funny.
apparently when Rachel's had too much soda or something, because she gets the giggles and it's hysterical to watch. But you're right, they emphasize slightly different things and you get a little different takeaway, but it's also just fun.
And this is probably too much information, but you know, putting one of those updates together is over a week of work at least, and probably a little bit more. By the time I get to Thursday or whatever day we launch it, I am wiped out. Because I've got the main responsibility to do it. And so what I do, Luke and Rachel, not in my presence, go and film like a rough cut version of GMT LDR right after the update goes out. So that night, after I've like got a little rest and I just want some stress relief, I go over and I click on their uncut version. I mean, the finished version is funny, but the uncut version is hilarious because it's all the not so complimentary things that they say about me as they're deciding what to go in and what not to go in. So it's good stress relief for me. And the next day when I see the 12-minute version, I'm like, oh, really glad they cut that one out. Anyway, check it out. I think you'll like it.
It's been a lot of fun to do, and I'm glad that different groups of people are receptive to it. So we'll keep doing it. I did see there was a question from Stuart at 1:30 that I thought might be interesting for Gene to answer.
Can you pull that up for
the
you give me hard questions to answer?
No, I don't think so. The kind of subjects that
okay,
you're interested in.
So what I tell all of our designers is that I don't give assignments. So in other words, GMT, we don't really have a strategy for the types of games that we're going to create like over a long term. Now, when we find games that customers really like, and usually those turn into series, then certainly that's part of our long-term strategy is for the designer to keep doing games in those series. But what I want is every once in a while, somebody will come to me and say, hey, what do you want me to work on next? And I'm like, I don't give assignments. What are you reading? What are you interested in? What drives you? What are you passionate about right now? Work on that. Do a game on that. And we'll figure out how to sell it because your passion for the game is going to come through in the quality of what you do. And so that's really my answer to this question is it's driven by what the designers are passionate about. And I love that we're that kind of company.
Would that apply as well to the types of games too? So, we were talking earlier about kind of cooperative solo games, which I think there's kind of a ton of opportunity there.
I mean,
the rise of solitaire games and things like that.
I think so, Mike. There's some, life is dynamic. There's nothing's 100%, right? There was a time a few years ago when somebody was talking about what they play with their family. And in our family, we still play games together. The kids are all adults, but we still love to play games together. Ivanhoe goes on with us on every family vacation. But for a while, we played a lot of co-op games. And GMT didn't have any co-op games, at least not any, official co-op games. But we really liked them. And so I thought GMT should have some co-op games. But I didn't want to go to any designer and say, hey, Mark Herman, do a co-op game, or Mike, do a co-op game. Instead, I send out a designer developer update newsletter every month. It's a lot shorter than the customer newsletter. But in there, I just said, hey, guys, if there are any of you who have been really interested in creating a co-op game, if that's your thing, if you've been wanting to do that, we're kind of looking for some. So let me know. And so one of our designers came back to me and said, I've got this game. You might not even want the topic because it's Banish the Snakes. It's Irish history. But he said it's pure co-op, and I'm really passionate about it. And this is a guy who had done great research, Kevin McPartland, on the Conquest of Paradise game that we printed several versions of. And so I knew that he would bring, his talent and research ability as well as passion to the topic. So that's kind of how we got a co-op game, Mike. Even there, I didn't want to give an assignment. I wanted to find out if anybody in our group of designers was interested in it. And then kind of the flip side of that is there are times when we say, we're not really going to do this type of game. I had a designer, one of our guys the other day brought me a design from a friend of his. And it was a good looking design. But the topic was about political turmoil in the United States. And Tony and Andy and I all said, nope, we don't do those. Now, I know this coming for the guy who did Mr. President, but when I did Mr. President, my number one design goal was to not do it in a political way, taking a political partisan point of view to create a game about being president that didn't get into the muck of all the partisan back and forth. So right now, it is a policy of GMT. We just don't do games that could add to the divide that we have in this country. Every once in a while, we'll have something like that.
The old Civil War is okay, right?
Yeah, we've got enough separation from that one now that I think you're safe to do 3 or 4 more games in that Rebel Fury series, Mark.
That's good. That's good.
It's a question, I think, for Gene, Luke, maybe Kai too, on reprints. Is the main barrier for reprints storage, that you just don't want them sitting in the warehouse too long, or
cash flow?
You want that, Kai, or you want me to take it?
You go ahead.
So no, it's the main barrier is not storage. We have plenty of room most of the time. We're getting 14,000 copies of Red Storm Rebellion in whenever that comes, and so my answer might be different after those arrive. But for the most part, it's not storage. It is cash flow. And I think that Tony and Kai do a pretty good job of figuring out the print run. But Tony and I laugh at each other all the time. We're like, we've been doing this for 30 some years, and we still can't figure out how many to print of anything. We're always wrong. We either sell out too quickly or it sits in the warehouse too long. It's not an exact science. But when it comes to reprints, we'd like to be able to get a couple years worth of reprints, again, so we don't have to reprint it again, like every 6 months or something. We'd like to get a couple years out of it. And that's kind of what we aim for. But there again, Atlantic Chase, it sells out, and we thought, okay, we'll put it back up. It did all right. We sold out again. We thought we printed the right amount. We sold out the reprints in 60 days. So it's not an exact perfect science.
I heard you sold out Empire of the Sun fourth printing also. I am surprised.
We did sell out the fourth printing in spite of the name on the front of the box. It's still sold out. Go figure. That's a great game. I mean, I've told you this many times, Mark. I told you that
I was saying I was surprised, but so we always get. I was reinforcing your point that we never know. We just don't.
Yeah,
know.
we don't
know.
So we do our best, and we do it as a team. So various people have input. So it's not just one person being wrong again and again. No, it's our whole group being wrong again and again. But
I can say
go ahead, Mike.
I can say to that, Mark, too, that like when I was getting back to Empire of the Sun, and I asked people, okay, what are the iconic games that I should play? And that was always in the top 3.
Yeah.
You ask people, wargamers, sure. What are the 3 you have to play? That one's there.
Well, thank you. But I will go back to, was it Molotov Cocktail, which is a funny name for a person. What I told Gene, you'll remember I told you this, I don't know, in the 90s.
Good paper, bad paper.
You take good paper, you turn into bad paper, you have to turn into good paper again. And that's the whole business of publishing. Good paper being cash, by the way.
Mark told me a long time ago, we've been friends for a really long time. He said, I learned things from my parents that I want to pass on to you, or something thereabouts. He said, from my mom, I learned this. There is never a good excuse for bad manners. And Mark and I kid around a whole lot, but I'll tell you what, that's one that I wish more people.
I tell you, something happened to me yesterday along those lines. I'm in New York City, of course, and I'm walking and I'm coming to the corner. And what happens in New York is, you're coming from one street, somebody's coming, we're all coming to the corner at the same time. and a woman was coming, and we were going to run into each other. I just stopped and I went like this, and she was like almost shocked that I did knock her over.
Yeah. So,
but you know,
the second thing Mark told me, he said, I learned this from my dad, and about business. He said, money is good paper. Inventory is bad paper. The object of business is to turn bad paper into good paper as efficiently as possible. And did I get that right, Mark? All right. So that's what we try to do. And all I'm saying is that on the print run side of things, we are doing it as efficiently as possible, but we're not doing it as efficiently as possible for us. But we're not doing it as efficiently as you could perfectly do it, because we're just not. But Kai is running production now, and she is doing her best to create order out of chaos. And actually, she's doing a great job. And so we do get better at this over time. It's just definitely not storage. It's picking the right number of them.
One of my jobs when I was, running Victory Games was I would get an inventory report, and you'd find out that, let's just say Civil War, I had 300 counter sheets of counter sheet 1, and I had 150 of counter sheet 2, and I had, all these weirdo components, and I would construct a report every month that would go back to, the Monarch printing plant, and they'd make the rest of the set, and then we'd have another 300 games to sell. So, so I was using, the information of, the ancient world, which was, came on stone tablets, by the way, to create full games to maximize getting rid of all the inventory components. And it was fun to do. It's, it's like a puzzle, but working for a printing plant does make life a little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we're kind of wrapping up here. I did just notice Kevin's question at 2:51, and since I designed it all, any thought of moving Mr. President concept to other areas? We've had tons of thought about that. Early in the process, like 9 years ago, we thought, oh yeah, we could easily do Mr. President the Kennedy years. We could easily do Mr. President the Roosevelt years, the Washington years. There's lots of places we could take this. We could also do Madam Prime Minister for Golda Meir. We could take it a lot of places. But after 9 years, the answer is it's not going to be me who does it. I will support anybody who wants to, kind of like Volko's done with Coin. If they want to take the system, that in GMT, you use our system, you ask permission, the designer gives you permission, the designer gets some small royalty because it's their design, and that's how we work. But somebody who wants to do that, God bless you, go do it. I think it would be a lot of fun to do. I'm just not the person who's going to do it.
I'm looking forward to Congress of Vienna for that reason. I love to see the final files, but I'm excited it's finally going to print.
Yeah, there you go. So, Luke, do you want us to hand this back to you? We're just almost at 3:00.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Very quiet.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yes, I have some thanks to give out. So thank you to everyone for tuning in, all of our viewers and commenters. Thank you for all the GMT team members for attending and for sharing with us about what you're working on. Thanks to Harold and all of the SD HISCON team for hosting this and giving us a slot in the schedule. Thanks to Mike from Zilla Blitz for co-hosting and for moderating. That was awesome.
Go check out his channel.
Yeah, definitely. Go check out his channel. That's all I have, unless anyone has anything else to say. No? Okay, then we will see.
I think the only thing to add too is that this will be on the SD HISCON channel, and I think we're going to give you a video version of this to do things with as well. So it'll be available after this event too.
Great. Thanks for your help, Mike. We appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you again, Mike.
Yep. Good to see you, Mark. Everybody.
All right.
Thanks to all you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Take care.
Enjoy
See you all
the
next time
games.
on GMT Talk.